Okay, so in our last video, we looked at sort of two different types of character controller, the typical top-down character controllers, where we had our little sort of hero character who would use the WASD keys, and our bird here that would use a rotate and kind of force forward sort of thing. And one thing I realized is that, well, in some cases, imagine you only had a single video like this. You only had a single animation where you just have the bird flapping and you don't have directions, but you want to use sort of the character-based control. So how would you easily or quickly modify the direction of this sprite, of this animated sprite, according to the direction that the character is moving in? How tricky would that be? Well, I came up with a really easy way to do it, and I wanted to share it with you and demonstrate it. It also demonstrates an important concept inside of Unity, that there are certain built-in vectors that help you to deal with the various coordinate systems. Now, right now our bird is sort of in this same kind of floaty asteroids or tank style-ish version where it rotates in a certain direction and then puts a force on it to kind of move forward. So that's that mode. Now, if I hit spacebar right now, I switch back into my WASD mode, right? And you'll notice that the bird will fly up with the W key, and it will fly down with the S key, and it will fly right with the D key, and left with the A key. Okay. So how do we deal with this? How do we do this in a way that's straightforward? And you'll notice it also even does a little bit of kind of cool rotation if I'm careful about it. All right, so how do I do that? Well, one of the key things about this right now is that, as I mentioned in one of the other videos, I have taken the player controller, and the player is actually this higher level game object. And the graphics and the animations are on these children objects of that, okay? So they're kind of a little bit dependent and independent with regards to the movement, okay? So the player is the thing that is moving, and these things really just provide the graphics underneath. Now, of course, one thing I can do is I can rotate those graphics, I can flip those graphics and do different things to them directly within the interface and modify them around. So that's easy enough to do, but the important thing is here, what I want to show you is that in order to move the bird, to change the bird's orientation, effectively what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate just this child object. Okay, so if I select the child object and imagine rotating the Z here, right? Right, so that that's what's changing. Now, if I move and I go in my game, keep an eye on that Z there. Let's switch into that mode. And you'll see that Z is in fact the thing that is changing. And in some cases even, that's interesting, I wound up with an X rotation. Now I'm not really doing much in the way of calculation for that. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm using a very simple shortcut where you can refer to the transform.up, right? So instead of the transform rotation, there's transform.up, right? And what transform.up is, it is a specific one of the axis. It's normally the green axis of the transform in world space, right? So I can change sort of the local coordinate system. I can rotate the local coordinate system with regards to the outside world, right? Normally, the green one just points up on the screen in this case, right? So if I come over here and we look at the bird and we find that, you'll see that the green arrow here is pointing up, all right? And I'll reset that to 0. Right, so that's up, that's right. Now, if you think about it, that is also pointing in what? Which direction? That is pointing in the Y direction, right? That's pointing in the Y direction. Let's set that back to 0. So effectively, the vector that is pointing in is 0, 1, 0, right? So that's the vector that we're looking at. So up is normally 0, 1, 0. But you can modify that. You can change that. So let's change that according to the joystick, our virtual joystick here. And we used myMove equals new vector, and we made that new vector out of the horizontal and vertical virtual axes, which gives us our joystick. So then all we have to do is say, well, let's use that myMove as the vector, the direction in which to point our bird. All right, now the bird is going to be relative, the transform.up of the parent is not going to change. We're just going to change the transform.up of the child, right? And that's what we're doing right here. We're saying, okay, as long as myMove, we normalize it, which basically means we set the magnitude to 1 because we want it to be a normalized vector. So we set the magnitude to 1. We say, well, as long as the magnitude is 1, meaning that as long as we have joystick input, because if we don't have joystick input, nobody's touching anything on the virtual joysticks, it will actually be 0, right? This myMove is going to become 0, have a magnitude of 0. The reason I do that is so that I won't be just changing direction to the 0 one either. So we're going to kind of maintain the current direction even after I let go of the joystick. All right, when I let go of the joystick, this becomes 0, so I don't want to actually execute this. And then all we have to do is say, well, game object find bird. That's our child object here. And we're going to just say we can assign the up vector. So instead of being pointing up, we can set it to be whatever we want it to be. And it will handle the rotation automatically. That will wind up pointing us in that new direction. And that's all there is to it.